Overwhelming. It's got 1 copy of Young Priestess. It's got 1 copy of Defender of Argus.
Yeah.
A lot of unique tech choices.
You look at controversially on Theis's zoo list, it has 2 Defender of Arguses in there. It has the Demon Fire in there, which is both like powerful buff tools that allow you to snowball a board. So if a Zoo Mirror does come up, you gotta, again, give Theis a slight edge in that matchup.
And then looking at the Rogue builds as well, they've taken very different approaches to their win conditions. JasonZhou's choosing to rely mostly on Leroy Jenkins to be his big finisher alongside, of course, the Auctioneer package. Theis is playing that ability to go all in very early and really punish opponents with questing adventurers.
Yeah, really different styles. Questing adventures kind of popularized by Amnesiac a few months ago, and they have some pretty good matchups all around. Not the most consistent deck in the world, as it does oftentimes have to rely on an all-in push, but it packs a very powerful punch and can almost always escape. Whereas the Leroy build doesn't have that ability to all-in as flexibly and can get caught if it gets pinned in by the lineup. And we see one of the tech choices by Theis here to maybe pin in a Rogue is his Hunter deck has 2 snipes, which is just insane against Rogues. So he might have actually, you know, expected a Rogue to be in Jason's lineup and teched his decks accordingly for that. And it might be hard for Jason to get that Rogue out.
And if he expected Rogue, he nailed it with this group. There are 2 other Rogues in the group as well. And then also the Druid build being different as well. We see JasonZhou here, game number 1 on the Druid. He's got 1 Azure Drake, 1 Mire Keeper, an Ancient of War, 1 Ancient of War, and 1 Harrison Jones. These are tech choices that you don't necessarily see in all these builds. Theis, we'll talk about his Druid a little bit later on, but he's going to be playing against the Zoo first and foremost, and this is a matchup that can be really tough if Theis gets an explosive start. Yeah,
it's oftentimes like if you Soulfire, discard Silverware Golem, it's just lights out for the Druid. It's just too much damage, too fast coming in. And we see already Jason's off to a very slow start here. He has the Innervate, he has the natural, the Nourish, but that's not usually the optimal way you want to ramp up in this matchup. Yeah,
he's very much going to be playing off of his draw density at the moment. He needs to pick up some gas and get it going, where Theis, on the other hand, Knife Juggler into Darkshire Councilman into Defender of Argus. This is one of those curve starts that can really punish Druid.
Especially with nothing to stop this Knife Juggler. No Wrath or anything that can put a hold on it. Oftentimes you're kind of afraid to develop a Knife Juggler on 2 because you're like, they can just Wrath it and then I'm losing this powerful effect that I can utilize better later. But in this case, Jason just doesn't have very much action to try and remove this.
And it's looking like it might be an uphill battle. Again, the ramp here is so powerful. This is what's going to give him his opportunity, is just having a ton of mana to play his big cards.
Yeah, well, he needs to find the big cards, though.
Yep, this is the risk.
Yeah, it's... The other way to go with it is for draw, but I don't think draw is ever going to let you win, so you do need to go with the crystals. The disappointing part is you can't utilize these 2 mana crystals you're gaining right now because the Voidwalker is completely stopping you from Hero Power Moonfiring the Juggler.
That's a big message to Theis. He now knows that Living Roots and Wrath are not in the hand for JasonZhou.
That's very true. That's very true. So he knows that those 4 cards in his hand are not any of those removal options, so he can play even more aggressively onto the board. If I was in Theis's shoes, I would be taking this opportunity just to slam the Councilman. You also got to be kind of worried about swipe and whatnot, but it seems like a fairly straightforward turn.
Yeah, we saw Theis think on turn 2 as well, which clearly was playing the Knife Juggler. Right now, Theis is trying to represent the idea of a range. Yeah. And that's something he's hoping JasonZhou will have to take into account and perhaps make him slip up at a certain point. Maybe he accounts for Power Overwhelmings, or maybe he accounts for a Soulfire that's there. It's very possible Theis could be thinking about Soulfire and hope to discard Silverware Golem.
Sure, yeah, it's definitely reasonable depending on the hand. Also, like, Dark Peddler can put out a lot of aggression really quick. It's just how sticky Councilman is makes it such a great play this turn. It's just so hard for Druid to deal with aside from Mulch, which is oftentimes a 1 of or a 0 of, and we see in Jason's deck only 1 Mulch there.
And mulching a Darkshire Councilman, not necessarily the greatest feeling in the world. It's 3 mana for 3 mana, and your opponent's getting a card.
Yeah, and maintaining the initiative.
That's a big pickup, though. Every single time JasonZhou is able to eliminate some of his presence, it's going to get him 1 step closer to finding something big. And something big is the first step of this.
Murloc Knight.
Wow.
Zoo loves to flood the board with lots of minions, and that's literally what Murloc Knight does. He can throw that out there and it's a must-remove minion, or he can try and hold on to it for the opportunity to be able to hero power with it later.
I think I like dropping it right now, and the reason why is because if JasonZhou has swipe, Swipe just to get a Murloc Knight is not necessarily a great trade for JasonZhou. But on the other hand, the only other card that can kill it, it's protected from, which is Feral Rage.
Yeah.
So getting the Murloc Knight out now, you will know if JasonZhou has Swipe after this turn.
Yeah, exactly. And even if, like you said, even if he does swipe it, then you're not being able to, you know, swipe Azure Drake later or any of these removal combos that you really want to be doing with Swipe.
Here's the first turn where there's going to be real board tension that Thijs has to think about. Is how scary is Emperor Thaurissan when your opponent only has 3 cards in hand?
Still pretty scary. Still pretty scary. It's never not scary, but
it's going to go for value.
Oh
my gosh! Okay, why not? Just, yeah, let's go ahead and get a second Murloc Knight.
Yeah, super rewarded by just taking the tap here. The alternative play is playing the Doomguard. You don't get as much value in your hand, and you potentially don't even discard the Silverware Golem, but going this line of play, he's saying that I don't really respect that Emperor Thaurissan too much. 3 cards isn't that big of a deal to me. He knows that they aren't removal spells based on the events earlier. So, yeah, I respect his decision to just kind of cash in the value on the Murloc Knight.
Yeah, easy power overwhelming off the Peddler, though. That will make that trade way easier, and JasonZhou is going to need some help. This is terrifying.
He's going to need to find something big. There is a Yogg-Saron in his deck list, so if he can maybe ramp up with this Mire Keeper and just hold on a little bit using the Feral Rage, draw with the Nourish, and try and find that Yogg-Saron, that's one of the ways he can come back in this game. But other than that, it's going to be really tough.
What are the odds to actually get a specific Murloc from Murloc Knight? Do you know the numbers on that?
I did at one point, but lately in the expansions, new Murlocs have been introduced.
Just curious.
Like Murloc Knight hasn't seen too much competitive play in a long time.
Well, seeing plenty right now.
Yeah, it's seeing its fair share for sure. Thijs has quite a bit of damage stacking up in his hand. What has got to be on Thijs' mind now is how does he close out the game before Jason finds his out of Yogg-Saron? So how can he push enough damage while maintaining enough board control to just close out the game as quickly as possible?
That's normally the plan for Zhou. When you have this much of a card advantage on your opponent, is there an alternative line here that gets you a higher win percent?
Okay, so you're saying maybe potentially you can just bite the Yogg-Saron coming down and hold enough things back, like the Doomguard Silverware Golem
keep tapping
combo.
and pushing. As long as the Murloc Knight's there, he's getting free stuff.
I think you might be right. It might be honestly a higher % chance to play around Yogg-Saron by playing less onto the board and just playing the control game as the Zhou deck.
It's pretty rare, but this is certainly an opportunity to do it.
Some control Zhou.
I like it.
Yeah, and that's what Thijs is going to do. We see him just taking the patient game here. A nice little tap. He's going to play around Yogg-Saron by just strictly outvaluing it.
I mean, with this much board presence, JasonZhou has to have a miracle right about now. I mean, because the damage from Thijs' hand is already super significant.
Malygos isn't too much help. There's not much he can pick up with it, but that is the Yogg-Saron.
I don't know if he has time.
Yeah, he needs to find
card.
Like another Innervate or a Wild Growth that can get to it, and Azure Drake's not going to do it.
2, 4, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm counting at least 15 damage from Thijs' hand. So he has the risk here with the Soulfire and the Doomguard. If he succeeds on either one of the discards, I believe it's lethal.
Yeah, he can go with the Soulfire, and then if it doesn't discard Doomguard, he wins the game outright from this position. How bad of a position does it put him in if he discards the Doomguard, though, is a risk he's got to wonder about a little bit. He also has the ability just to, you know, do this, Demon Fire up that Imp Gang boss, and then play that Defender of Argus and take this disgusting value trade.
Yep. Thijs will not... Wait, does this present lethal also? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep, that's another opportunity for lethal.
Okay.
So the Doomguard Soulfire was one over lethal,
okay.
And that was just the one I spotted instantly.
Sure.
So...
And he gets a Silverware Golem added on there. Why not?
Insults to injury. What a fantastic game number 1 for Thijs. Getting the Murloc Knight was honestly such a big key in this game it let Thijs approach it so safe.
Sure. Yeah. It didn't win him the game, but it won him the game more, right? Like, he already had a very good handle on the game. It's a matchup where Zhou is heavily favored against Druid. Druid had a mediocre opening. Zhou had a good opening. And then to add insult to injury, the Murloc Knight showed up, and now Thijs could play the control route. He could play a little bit slower and just coast off of it rather than having to, you know, do Zhou things and commit to an all-in prior to the Yogg-Saron.
Let's find out if JasonZhou can bounce back right after this.
The Hearthstone World Championship is sponsored in part by Intel. T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
What do you think China ranks in as far as the regions in competitive Hearthstone?
Chinese player didn't play a lot of like international tournament. Basically, we play in our region, but we have a lot of talented players, and they all play very well. Let's see if we can get a good achievement this year.
What's been the difference overall between the competitive scene in China and the competitive scene in the Americas?
In NA, there are a lot of online tournaments, but in China, we have Golden Series. Every month, you have a like open tournament. Then you can travel and make friends and play Hearthstone. I think it's pretty cool.
What initially made you like Control Warrior so much?
Because I like Zhou. He is a very famous streamer on Twitch. I watch a lot of his stream, and I feel like, yeah, this deck pretty good, and then I want to try it, like just as a fan. That's why I always play Control Warrior. Yeah. Well, thanks to Zhou, he is a good meta.
You play on both ladders?
Yeah, both ladder.
What is there big differences between the Chinese ladder and the Americas ladder?
America, they have like more control players. In China, they have a lot of aggressive players. When I go back to China, I feel like Control Warrior is so tough on China because they all like aggressive decks. Always Zoo, always like Shaman, something like that. So you need to change a bit. I think a good player need to like make the change based on the situation, right?
A lot of experience on Chinese ladder, a lot of experience in the Americas ladder. Not sure JasonZhou's ever experienced anything quite like Thijs.
Yeah, Thijs is a different beast, honestly. He's a very consistent tournament performer, and it's seeming like very stressful for JasonZhou to try and compete with him here.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, honestly. I mean, you take a look at the interview with him, he's playful, he's happy. Here, there's a lot of focus going into it, but the body language between the two to me says, I'm nervous for JasonZhou. Thijs says, I'm focused. This is a familiar situation for Thijs. He was at the World Championships in 2015.
Yeah.
He lost to the eventual world champion. This is like another day at the office for him.
Yeah, and I mean, well, Jason's got some tournament experience under his belt too, in the open tournaments in China, but
yeah,
not quite exactly the same.
No, not at all. And that's the thing about it, is winning any of those tournaments, getting through Gold Series, those are super impressive things. The Chinese servers are massive. There's a ton of players. It's very different when you're staring across an opponent that's from the other side of the world, playing for $1 million.
Gets pretty nerve-wracking pretty quick, and maybe that's why JasonZhou has decided to go with his comfort pick here. The deck he has the most experience with, the Control Warrior. Over 20,000 ladder games won with Control Warrior.
And this is not just a Control Warrior build, this is a N'Zoth Control Warrior build, and there's quite a few tech choices in here that really stand out.
Yeah, only having one shield block is a bit interesting. He's got the Tankmaster Overspark. We might see that come into play for this specific matchup. It has the ability to, you know, remove a stealthed minion. So it can remove a stealthed Gadgetzan Auctioneer, or a stealthed Questing Adventurer, or a stealthed Giant Edwin Van Cleef. Yeah,
a lot of different uses for that card, playing on the N'Zoth side of things. Meanwhile, for Rogue, like you mentioned, this is the Questing Adventurer build. We saw Chestude and Amnesiac really play this deck for a long time. I remember when Amnesiac made it, he kind of said it was more of a joke than anything else, and then Chestude played with it, said, oh, this is really good, and it kind of became the deck.
And since then has had, you know, become one of the most prominent forms of Rogue. There's either the Questing Adventurer build or the Malagos build, and it's just become a staple.
Yeah, very all-in oriented. In this particular matchup, do you feel like the all-in strategy is the direction Rogue takes in this one? Because they do have an alternative line with Gadgetzan Auctioneer.
A lot of times in this matchup, if there is no Tankmaster Overspark, you can actually get Inevitability as the Rogue. You can set up your hand in such a way that you can cycle X amount of cards so that you can have the exact perfect things that you need, and then make a Questing Adventure and an Edwin in the same board and stealth them both. So if one of them lives the brawl, you win, sort of thing. So it's all about like planning for that, you know, super end game, how you set up for that. But the Tankmaster Overspark makes that a lot less consistent, makes that a lot harder to pull off, as it can just ruin your day when you stealth a Gadgetzan, or ruin your day when you stealth your win condition.
And there it is in hand, showing up right away.
Oh yeah, that's a very important card for really Jason in this matchup. And you know, other than that, there's also like Harrison Jones he has teched in his deck, which is you know, removing a weapon from Rogue traditionally has been super powerful. Thijs does have 2 deadly poisons, so that makes it pretty powerful, but it's not nearly as powerful as it used to be, and a lot of times Harrison, though, is just used for, you know, that consistency in the draw, to be able to draw more of your deck, find the answers you need.
It offsets a bit of tempo, which that's something that the Control Warrior really struggles with in this matchup, just finding enough time. If you take away a dagger, sometimes that means your opponent has to use another 2 mana to get poison active.
Yeah.
That's another 2 mana they have to spend to unlock 6 damage, or unlock 4 damage in that aspect, rather. Plus, you get the card draw. To me, the time is the really important facet of it. It's also just a 5/4. Sometimes it has to be eviscerated.
Sure. Yeah. And the Rogue has very limited damage output. Yeah. It needs a lot of it connecting to face. So if it just misses out on a bunch of damage by having to use eviscerates on minions, then it can find itself in a situation where the Warrior just has too much life to ever be able to be dealt with.
Really critical turn here for Thijs. Does not have Tomb Pillager as the drop, and that is a very important card in this matchup.
Yeah, had the ability to kind of coin Ezra Drake if he wanted to, spent a lot of time thinking about it, wants to end up trying to save that coin for the Gadgetzan Auctioneer so he can try and get more cycle with it, try and find the important parts of his deck.
JasonZhou, second bash comes out. Now the armor total's building.
Ooh, this is kind of an awkward spot. You really want to deadly the Acolyte of Pain, but hey, using the coin to do so is very expensive.
Ooh, Conceal gets drawn. Well, you know, this almost exact same situation came up at Fight Night when I was playing with Clarity Gaming. We had our own Acolyte of Pain out, and our opponents played Auctioneer and stealthed it. Tankmaster had just changed, and we played it. We just turned our own Acolyte into a squirrel.
Okay.
But we were hoping that we turned the Auctioneer to that squirrel. Like, this is bringing like a flashback from 2014 for me.
Yeah, it's been a lot of the matchups have kind of went back in time a little bit. You see the same thing with Warrior and Shaman as well. So it's pretty interesting to see, and having 2 Acolytes extended onto the board makes Gadgetzan Coin Conceal a little bit awkward, because you're afraid of Brawl potentially. And not so much the Tankmaster, just because there's so much targets on the field for it now to hit. But the Brawl is always a little bit scary.
It's also not like a significant prep target here.
Sure. So you can't cycle it immediately.
Oh, he could Shadow Strike face as well, though, actually, which is kind of important in this matchup. That's another 5 damage he has access to.
Thank you.
The fact that he got in such little chip damage I think that could be relevant this game.
Yeah, Thijs just being patient. I really like this. He's going to get another coin from the Tomb Pillager. And not only that, he's going to get another natural amount of mana to be able to cycle with his gadgets in later. So he's just waiting as long as possible, playing around Brawl, playing around, you know, the Tankmaster Overspark, realizing the warrior is not going to kill me. I have time to wait till I have all of my mana available to cycle this gadgets in.
And you alluded to this right at the beginning of the game. It's about being able to draw about as many cards as you can.
Yeah.
And in this position, Thijs, because the Tomb Pillager wasn't answered, is going to take this opportunity to use the Tomb Pillager as a win condition now.
Yeah, he's potentially able to get the Tomb Pillager to stick twice, which is absolutely insane. I would really like to see him just jam another Cold Blood onto it, hit him in the face with it, and then prep Conceal. If the Tomb Pillager did not stick, I don't think he would be going off of Gadgetzan. He would continue doing that game plan that he had already set out by playing the Tomb Pillager the previous turn, which is, I'm going to be patient, I'm going to wait to be able to draw my entire deck. But now, since the opportunity has presented itself where he can Cold Blood a minion, punch you in the face with it, and then conceal it, that's why he's going all in with it, like this.
It's a big turn. This last draw is actually pretty important too. Second Auctioneer.
That's a good one.
When this inevitably gets handled in some fashion, it means that Thijs has another opportunity to keep digging. And you mentioned it, setting up these perfect turns. Not only did he get a strong setup there, he also dealt 13 damage. That's a big deal.
Well,
he got 5 extra damage that he oftentimes just won't get.
And here comes the Brawl from Jason. This is super important. That's not what you want to see at the outcome of the Brawl.
And the Tankmaster.
He's got the opportunity to go for it. He's going to go for it. He does get the Devil Sword, which is still fortunate for him. You know,
yes.
it at least hits the right target. Because the Tankmaster could have turned his own Bane into something, but at least now it's, you know, only 5 instead of 13. He's just trying to stay alive this game. He's just, if he can outlast Thijs's damage, he will eventually win the game. Thijs is already down one of the most precious resources in this entire matchup, which is the Conceal. The Conceal is what's going to guarantee Thijs additional damage to stick to the face. He doesn't have Leroy for insane amounts of burst, and the questings will be dealt with a single target removal from Jason if they aren't concealed. So he really needs to find that second Conceal and set up a lot of damage with it.
So going for the Blood Mage Shadow Strike here in order to unlock Edwin Van Cleef. Thijs says you've used a Brawl, you just take Mastered. I don't think you got more than that.
Okay.
Giddy up.
I like it. Very aggressive play, but the second Brawl is drawn by Jason to punish this line of play.
And when Thijs sees that attack, he knows it's got to be Brawl right afterwards.
Thijs still has a lot of fuel left in the tank, though. He's not totally exhausted.
And Edwin wins.
The most favorable outcome for the Brawl. Very good for him. And he has an Azure Drake to reload. He's got a Gadgetzan to reload. And Tomb Pillager is a very solid body. So I really like the line of committing into this Brawl with the amount of gas he has left.
All of his plays are good.
Yeah, they're all really good.
It's a good spot for Thijs.
Yeah. I'd like to see him try and develop the Tomb Pillager this turn, just so you can have that resource of the coin later for future turns with Gadgetzan potentially. Just sort of set it up now.
At this point, he's free to extend a lot if he wants to. I mean, both Brawls are gone. JasonZhou's not in Revenge range yet. 12, the number he's looking for to activate 3 damage from that. But even a 3 damage doesn't clear this. It'd have to be multiple effects.
I think, honestly, the 3/5 is almost worth ignoring. I think you can just Tomb Pillager, Azure Drake, punch him in the face.
Doesn't really contest anything.
Yeah.
I am a little bit curious about the sap.
I mean, it contests things with a whirlwind effect, I guess. It can support a slam or be an execute trigger, but
not really that many strong sap targets in the build either. If you look at it, Infested Tauren about the only thing that actually stands in the way.
As a taunt-wise,
sure.
Yeah, able to push through a lot of damage. He's threatening lethal on the following turn.
It kind of does kill it. I mean, imagine JasonZhou being in a situation where he can actually play Elise again this turn. It's just not happening.
Yeah. Jason's going to be forced to use this execute here if he wants to stay alive. You have to be expecting your rogue opponent to have some form of damage. The class has just so much power in it, and you know, Thijs did not cut any of the damage from the build. He's got double Deadly Poison, double Eviscerate, double Cold Blood, so he's got it all there.
It's actually added some damage with the South Sea deckhand.
Yeah, and the South Sea.
I'm not seeing a way out of this.
It's going to have to be like Revenge, Execute, Armor, Elise is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I have Caster Vision right now. I can see Thijs has a strong reload to it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's what I'm looking at. JasonZhou, from his perspective, it's got to be execute. There's actually not a way that he lives if he doesn't play execute.
Yeah.
Theis's hand would have to just be awful. I can't even really think of a range of cards.
I have no time for
He's going to go with a little bit of the aggressive approach of the Sylvanas here. Interesting. The one thing I really don't like about the Sylvanas is the Tomb Pillager can just kind of trade into it, and then the Sylvanas has been dealt with.
I think Zhou's happy with that.
Yeah, you gain 5 life.
Yes.
So it's not that bad. So, kind of interesting.
He's hoping for it. He's got N'Zoth in hand. He's
Sure.
hoping that
He's
the
hoping
trade.
to just play N'Zoth next turn.
He's hoping trade happens. Theis has a weak reload. N'Zoth is able to swing it.
That's a good win condition.
Playing to his out.
And
Now,
unfortunately, Theis does not have a weak reload. He's got the choice between Questing Adventure, Azure Drake, and Gadgets and Auctioneer, or
the trade is pretty much slated. Wasn't the difficult part. He wants to protect this further board. It's this board state that JasonZhou has a tough time on. There's not a recovery here.
missed a +1/+1 on the questing from the sequencing, but it's still a big questing and a lot of threat moving forward.
Oh yeah, he played the Auctioneer first.
choose soon.
Even Theis gets nervous on the big stage.
Yep. Maybe he wanted it to be a 4-4.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a reason for it to be a 4-4.
Can't actually think of one.
But either way, JasonZhou's pretty much back against the wall here. Not really any great way out of this. He has to kill that questing adventure, otherwise it threatens to continue to grow.
Yeah, and that's not the way you want to kill it.
No, no. So he's going to be up at 8 life. Theis representing 7 damage with his hand currently. Looking to try and draw more, and he's got a few chances at it with the Gadgets in play.
A few is a bit of an understatement. He's got a backstab, a fan of knives, a deadly poison, and whatever else he picks up.
Yeah. And there's another fan of knives.
It's about as close to yes, he has more damage as it gets.
Well, does he have more damage in the deck, actually? We may have actually seen both Eviscerates already.
Did we see both Eviscerates? That's the one I'm curious about. I don't think we did.
I don't think we did
I know
either.
we saw both SI7 agents. Did we see both?
Yeah, he's got the other Eviscerate.
Yeah, did we see both deadly poisons? We did. That's the second one right there. Yeah, so the other Eviscerate was the damage.
Yeah, this is the final damage card remaining in Theis's deck, and he has just enough damage to get the job done. Off to a 2-0 lead up against Jason.
Just what a dominant performance. That game went about exactly as you described. And he kind of implemented that time-old strategy. Your opponent has a weak turn, that's the time to attack.
Yeah, it was one of the questionable turns from Jason was he left up that Tomb Pillager, and that's what allowed Theis to, you know, combine the Cold Bloods with the Conceals. Otherwise, if you never give Rogue a minion stuck on the field, they can't Cold Blood it, punch you in the face with it, then conceal it. They have to, you know, play it, conceal it, Cold Blood it the next turn, then hit you, and then conceal it again. And they have to use both of their conceals in that approach.
We'll find out if JasonZhou can return one of these games. We'll be right back after this.
You started from pretty much nothing in Hearthstone. You know, you didn't have much of a following. You played in open tournaments. You earned your way up.
Twilight Drake attacks Hellfire. Maria goes down, and Thijs is your European champion. What a series, guys.
Our first semifinalist has been decided. It is a European.
So how did you feel about your performance last year at the World Championship? You made it all the way to the semifinals.
Wow. It is apparent that Osaka takes it.
That was an amazing match. It's just mind-blowing. That's Hearthstone at its best.
And last year, I was proud of what I did. There couldn't be a better match to end it, and yeah, sadly, it was me being a little bit short, but I think I played a really good tournament, and yeah, I hope that I can do that this year again, and then maybe go even a little bit further.
Is there pressure on you, knowing that there's expectations for you to perform from your fans and from the community?
It really gives me a lot of motivation. Like every time I have a free hour now, I'm like, I can practice because I want to do it for me, for the community, for a lot of people. So it gives me a lot of energy too. I took 3 weeks just totally off. I have played around 8 or 10 hours a day, just fully prepared, not playing ladder, but mainly playing against practice partners. And I think that made me really strong now coming into the tournament. I have a lot of achievements. I've done a lot, but yeah, now I'm really hungry. So I really would like to win BlizzCon. It is something as like one of my last goals that I would like to achieve in Hearthstone. And I also have the feeling this is my year. If it's not this year, it's going to be super difficult to do all the work that I did 2 years again. I see the competition become super strong. I now had the perfect preparation for the tournament, so if I want to do it, I have to do it this year.
You know, I've watched a lot of Thijs matches, and a lot of times he's played very conservative. I've seen him not set up 2-turn lethals in a lot of spots before.
Yeah.
These last 2 games from Thijs is very, very much finding the opportunity to strike.
Yeah, he wasn't kidding when he said he was hungry. He looked really hungry in those games. Very aggressive play style. Really different from the normal Thijs, like you're saying.
That's such a big thing to note, too. I remember when Kalento actually had that moment as well, where he played very conservatively, and then kind of towards the tail end of his big tournament foray, he started being really aggressive. And he was winning a lot at that point.
When every time you're being the aggressor in any sort of match, when you're being the one taking the action, you're the one that's risking the most, right? Because when you're being the reactive player, you're waiting for them to take a risk and then responding to it.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very comfortable to be the one that actually taking the risks rather than responding to the risks. And
it's not just as simple as taking risks. It's about taking risks at the right time.
Sure.
He's identifying the perfect moment for it, even when there's little information to be had. Just making strong reads.
And JasonZhou, not able to really compete with it yet, but he's hoping to pick up the win with a Warrior. He had a very strong tech choices with his Warrior. He had a very strong performance with his Warrior. No fault to him there, and hoping to try and get the win here against the Druid. This matchup, typically speaking, is heavily in favor of the Druid, just because they have those Arcane Giants, they have Ancient of War, so many must-kill threats. Emperor, Gadgetzan, Auctioneer in Thijs's build of the deck, so they can run out of removal, run out of steam, and just get walked over by the Druid a lot of the times.
The Auctioneer is really one I want to talk about, because this matchup, usually that's a Ragnaros, or the Sylvanas that's in the build is a Ragnaros. He's got the Auctioneer, Sylvanas, Ancient of War. It's a different style of attack, but it's still very powerful versus Warrior. Auctioneer can end games just by finding your end game.
Yeah, if the Auctioneer sticks, that's a win condition right there. You will find Malygos plus stuff, and that will lead you to dealing upwards of 35 damage if you get the double roots, double moonfire, innervate, swipe.
Right on time. Right on time, Thijs draws Wild Growth. So now he has turn 2 Wild Growth. He's got options this turn.
Yeah.
He's going to go for more ramp.
Of course, yeah. He's got a very sick hand for this ramp. He ramps up to 6 and then can continue ramping with another Mire Keeper even.
I am a little bit curious about the Fangel here, because to me there's 2 very different approaches. Number 1 is buy the extra value with Raven Idol, Number 2 is go for the risk of playing Fandral right now to unlock the Nourish turn.
Yeah.
With this much ramp in his hand, I don't think there's any reason for him to take a risk with Fandral. At this point, I think he's free to wait until he finds Raven Idols to buy that extra value. Because in this matchup, a lot of times you'll typically seek a minion simply because it's just about dealing damage repetitively with one thing until the opponent gets in the combo range.
Sure. Yeah, there's very limited removal in the Warrior Arsenal. They got 2 Shield Slams, 2 Executes for your big, really hard to remove things for the most part. And you have a lot of things that kind of require those Shield Slams and Executes in the form of Malagos, the Arcane Giants, Ancient of War. So if you can get them to exhaust some of those resources on non-essential pieces, then those essential pieces are going to stick.
And with this ramp, Thijs is now heading into an 8-mana turn before JasonZhou has head into a 5-mana turn.
That's absolutely ridiculous. He's going to most definitely be going for draw off that Nourish, as he does not need any mana.
He just ramps cards again. That'd be the greatest.
Wow, he's going to be able to play Nourish next turn for essentially 3 mana if he wants to, because he can combo it with the Fandral.
Yep, and picking up the Raven Idol. He will be hunting for some Fandral turns very soon. It might be Azure Drake first, just because it's playing to such a strong curve, but the Fandral Nourish, like you said, getting the discounted mana on it effectively, it restores 2 mana crystals when you just already have a bunch of them.
Yeah. It's absolutely disgusting, and he's thinking about maybe using, I guess, Feral Rage this turn with the Moonfire to get the repetitive damage of the 3/3, because Moonfire is 6 damage long-term in combination with Malagos, but if this 3/3 connects twice, that's also 6 damage, plus however many resources they expend killing the 3/3.
Well, it would have to connect 2 more times, and you also give up the damage from Feral Rage as well.
Sure.
So
yeah, it's a bit expensive.
It's pretty expensive.
It's worth thinking about, though, for sure.
With Auctioneer in the build, I think it's worth holding.
Okay. Okay.
I think he's got tons of card draw right now.
To get the combo built.
And I think that's where his concern is right now, is just finding a way to secure that position. I think if he uses Feral Rage and Moonfire right now, he's giving up too much.
I see that as being reasonable, for sure. Ooh. Innervate could allow him to go off with the Fandral and the Raven Idol and the Nourish this turn if he wanted to. Or some combination of those cards. He also has more passive plays with just Azure Drake waiting till he has the full 10 mana to play around with Fandral.
It's an interesting spot. You know, Amnesiac, I believe it was on Wednesday, he said, you don't just play with your hand, you play with the entire deck. And with the Azure Drake play right here, if Swipe got picked up, this was about to be a blowout from Thijs. His hand is already super strong, and he would have taken just an enormous lead at that point.
Sure, yeah, you play towards your Swipe out and you save your Fandral so that you don't have to utilize that Innervate for your Nourish and your Raven Idol, so you can save that for the full Malagos combo with the, you know, Malagos double Moonfire, double Living Roots, Innervate, Swipe, get that massive damage.
It's also just possible he's waiting for the second Raven Idol. I don't think that's unreasonable with his hand.
Sure. Go the super long game. That would be interesting.
It is versus a N'Zoth build, so
yeah,
I think he's got a lot of time.
The N'Zoth build, though, if you give them too much time, they do have a win condition. Like, they can turn on the guns eventually, and if that N'Zoth brings back a couple Death Rattles, all of a sudden...
Just charging the laser the whole game.
Yeah, you're just toast after that. So, you know, Thijs doesn't have a Yogg-Saron in his build to, you know, swing the board if N'Zoth gets fully built up. So it is a little bit of a race.
Yeah, he's playing it more of a combo style, though, and I agree with this. Like, he's got the ability to turn the corner if he needs to. Now that the board's empty, you might see it, but then Wrath gets picked up. This is...
I really want to see the Fandral just cycling his deck, going through it very quickly.
So does he have the hand space for that even? So if he plays Fandral, that's another good point too. I mean, he's already got 8 cards in hand. He'd go to 7, 6. He'd go to 9 cards post-Nourish. And then if he Raven Idol, he'd have 10 cards in hand.
Well, that wouldn't be good.
He'd have to expend resources then. So maybe just there's nothing he wants to use right now as well.
Yeah, showing a lot of patience, waiting for the second Raven Idol, trying to generate extra cards into his deck.
But then again, this will force something. Now he's got 10 cards in hand, and he's still got 10 cards in hand.
A bit awkward for sure. And he's thinking about ditching the Moonfire.
He's ditched the Innervate.
Yeah,
it's the weakest card by far.
Yeah.
Just doesn't need it. This is one of those matchups, honestly, where Innervate is not astonishingly powerful.
It's cool with double Innervate, Swipe Malagos in your hand, just in case, you know, you have to use it for something, just a big blowout Malagos face turn, but
not an essential tool.
Yeah, not an essential tool, and definitely not needed in the current state of things.
Meanwhile, JasonZhou has finally found himself 8 mana.
Yeah. Gets to be the aggressor here, gets to finally take initiative onto the board, and
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right.
He could steal.
Yeah. The 10 free face
I think I like that a lot, actually, because Wrath in this matchup is, frankly, it's pretty weak.
Well, the thing about the Wrath, though, is you lose a lot of cycle is the issue, right? So if you Wrath your Sylvanas twice for 3, then you lose 2 card draws that could potentially put you closer to your Malagos combo to kill them faster. So is that really worth it? And Thijs is going to say no, he wants to cycle these Wraths to get the card draw for them. So he's going with the Fandral this turn and going to be cycling both of these Wraths.
Yeah. He's going to Wrath first.
Sure, get the draw first.
This will put 10 cards in hand, so he's got to expend some resource here to get under the amount. He instantly takes Stranglethorn Tiger, and rightfully so. That's 5 damage in this matchup.
Moonglade Portal's not a bad card either. That's a free 6-drop. So your 1-mana card basically generated a 5-drop and another 5-drop there in Moonglade Portal.
Yeah, Thijs will have to likely spend a card here or just burn something, which I don't think he's in the business of burning something right now, so Innervate it is.
And the Innervate Feral Rage out there, get the damage and the armor gain from the card. Basically just turning 1 card into 2 over and over again. That's what Fandral does. And in a value game, that's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, so the cycling, very important in this spot.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, you know, cycling's more important than 10 damage, but, you know, if you analyze your whole deck and figure out how the macro plan of the situation of all 30 card works out.
Hey, not a bad Ironforge Portal. Allows you to kill Fandral.
Doesn't have to use the execute.
Now, granted, Fandral has already done all the dirty work, but it's there. So 12 burst from hand with Malagos Double Moonfire. Thijs still got a way to go to set it up. And this is where the turns start getting a little bit peculiar for Thijs, because finding the right order for these minions so that they maximize their damage in the long turn, it's not as easy as it looks. It's not just the most powerful one in your hand. He's got to figure out where he maneuvers them so that he's forcing the most from JasonZhou to not only get information, but then to follow up stronger.
Yeah, and he can't overextend into things like Brawl, because you don't want to make it so JasonZhou basically has more tools to work with. You want to try and limit the amount of ways that he can interact with your board and exhaust him of specific resources.
That'll make it much more burst now.
Yeah, that's a lot of burst. Up to 19 burst damage in the hand for Thijs.
It's also, Thijs is way deeper into the build right now.
Yeah, 7 cards now remaining after the cycle of that Wild Growth, so he's getting close to those Arcane Giants, getting close to that other Living Roots to, you know, maximize out his damage output at the 26 marker. He's used both Innervates, so it's going to be very difficult for him to combo a Swipe with the Malagos combo, so he's looking at about 26 max burst from that combo. He has 1 Raven Idol remaining.
Yeah, barring multiple Emperor ticks, he will not get a Malagos swipe unless it just naturally lives. And this is one of the best plays you can make into Ancient of War for
sure.
Sylvanas.
Yeah, he doesn't even have to use the Shield Slam here. He knows that the Ancient of War is not going to die very easily, so he's hoping to just guarantee get good value out of it while being able to hold Shield Slam, being able to hold Execute for those Arcane Giants, the Malagos, those difficult to remove minions.
I'm curious if Thijs is going for Spell or for Minion here.
Well, you're really close to killing him. If you can get another Moonfire, another Living Roots, you can really turn on the heat.
Yep, Nourish is not what he's looking for at this point. He's already so deep into the build, this extra card draw just doesn't really matter that much.
No.
And I think he's taking Mulch to make sure he can eventually hedge against
this. He's taking it to steal his opponent's Sylvanas with his Sylvanas, which is a very, very good play right now for the board state situation. But not only that, in the future, Jason's N'Zoth's not going to bring back Sylvanas because his Sylvanas didn't die.
That's a big deal, actually.
Taken.
That is actually a really huge deal.
Yeah.
I looked at this initially. It's like, Mulch seems weird. And then
no,
you put Sylvanas, and I was like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I always forget that you can mulch your own stuff because it gives your opponent the card.
Yeah.
And Brawl just is deadly shot here, just to kill 1 minion.
You have to do it. Thijs isn't going to commit more power onto the board than that. He's just going to push 10 a turn. So just getting the value out of Brawl when you can, I think, is a very smart move by Jason here.
It's an excellent point. I mean, there's nothing else going on this turn. As soon as Emperor gets drawn, this is bad news for JasonZhou. That is a lot of damage. Thijs needs to unlock just a few attacks to get this done. And it's going to start with Moonglade Portal. This is the one I think that presents the highest opportunity for him.
Yeah, could get a Karen, get something extremely powerful.
Could get a Wilford Fizzlebang.
Yeah, not typically what you want to see out of the card. So
It's one of the weaker 6-drops.
Yeah. Plays right into the Argent Commander by Jason, so that's not going to feel great. This can happen with Druid sometimes. You just start fizzling out and the Warrior has enough time to stabilize, and Jason's armor count's getting up there. It's
40's hard to deal.
Yeah.
I mean, Tyson hasn't drawn an Arcane Giant yet.
I mean, when he does, it's going to be met by a Shield Slam for now.
I know he needed to draw this way earlier, and so now the Stranglethorn Tiger. This is still a strong play here, but he's got to find a way to start chipping through JasonZhou's armor total. The fact that the Emperor and the Arcane Giants are in the bottom cards of this build this is kind of a nightmare for Thijs right now. He needed this to unlock the damage sooner.
Yeah, and the Gadgets and Auctioneer is buried deep inside there
his bottom 4 cards are Arcane Giant, Emperor Thaurissan, Gadgets, and Auctioneer, 4 of the major tools that he needs for this matchup.
Yeah, the win conditions that assemble the Malagos combo before they get to 40 armor, basically. So he can still definitely pull out through this game. He just needs to be able to connect an Arcane Giant a few times, which really relies on JasonZhou not finding too many more removal spells. If Jason's able to pick up, like, let's say another Execute and the other Shield Slam, then Jason's going to just have all of the tools necessary to close out this game. But Jason, he doesn't have 4 cards left in his deck. He has, like, 12 cards remaining in his deck, so it's going to be a lot harder for him to piece together these single target removals in time.
Yeah, I think it's 13 cards remaining for JasonZhou, if I saw it right. And this is the turn for Thijs. So Emperor Thaurissan doesn't give you the burst damage straight from hand to kill JasonZhou this turn. I think it might be off the table. Double Swipe, on the other hand, would open up the board state. He gets to clear the board, he gets to deal JasonZhou a pretty significant amount of damage, and then he gets to attack with Stranglethorn Tiger. So he's chipped away the armor at this point. He's got Emperor Thaurissan coming down next turn. He's hoping the Tiger forces removal here, and if that happens, then he's got the burst.
Yeah, and also Malagos might even stick, you know? And then the Arcane Giants are the next 2 draws for Thijs, and then those might even stick, just because you're eating out of JasonZhou's hand completely. But this N'Zoth, the Sylvanas has been taken. It doesn't bring it back.
I actually don't think there's been a Death Rattle.
Yeah, it does nothing.
Yeah, it's just a 5/7.
Yeah, just because the Sylvanas was taken by Thijs. So being able to take the Sylvanas was so huge this game. And if JasonZhou was able to get another Sylvanas on the table now, he would be in a lot better of a spot.
It would almost be a winning situation for him, I'd say.
Almost, yeah.
I look at this and wonder if he's got a Tankmaster.
No, you have to Tankmaster the Malagos, right? This one you can just remove with your face, the armor up, and the Shield Slam potentially, or even just double Revenge or Revenge Ravaging Ghoul. He's going to go with it. Open a high roll here, able to get some success. He can put some pressure out on the field with the second Ravaging Ghoul.
What does that cost him, though? Again, he doesn't have Tankmaster now, and when Thijs sees the Tankmaster, he's got to know something's up. The last 2 cards are both Arcane Giants.
Yeah.
16 power is trapped in the bottom 2 cards of Thijs' build. And Auctioneer's effect it's a liability now. It's not actually a benefit.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great sequence for him, but it still might be enough to get the job done. It is a very favorable matchup for Druid, so they just have usually more threats than the Warrior has removal, and that's what we're probably going to see end up deciding this game, as JasonZhou is going to quickly run out of removal as he is just remaining the Brawl in the Shield Slam.
So post Emperor Thaurissan, 12, 19, 26 from hand would be the maximum.
So he's gonna
it would be 26 plus the hero power. So 27 damage would be the maximum available. So that's the magic number that Thijs is looking for. Get JasonZhou to 27 heading into his turn.
And JasonZhou should know, that there's 26, maybe 27 available if both Living Roots and the Malagos got discounted. But very safely, he knows that there is at least the 26.
That's an important one.
Yeah, that's going to help him.
A very important one right now.
Buy time against Giants.
It's looking like Thijs is going to have to get some real minion damage this game if he's going to win, because the threat of Justicar makes Thijs speed up.
And one of the interesting things is with the swipes exhausted and the only spells being the Moonfires and the Living Roots, if Malagos comes down, for example, goes all face and is the only minion for Thijs sticking, Jason doesn't ever have to remove that. He can just armor pass every turn and win in fatigue against the Malagos, because it doesn't push additional, it only pushes 1 additional damage a turn.
Thijs, he's moving in.
He is moving in.
He's saying, you know what? I think that there's a chance this Malagos lives. And he's going to add the Arcane Giant next to it, it looks like?
It did look like he queued that up. That could be a little bit punishing as it opens up Brawl for JasonZhou now. Yeah, he did it.
Oh my. I don't know about this one.
I mean, you can't just have only Malagos on the field because it's not enough pressure to beat the hero power.
That's true. He's threatening the lethal, or trying to threaten. It's actually not even threatening lethal in this spot because he's going to go to 14 at the very least. If JasonZhou wins this Brawl, this game's over.
I mean, not only that is he's got the double of revenge here. He can get a lot of work done with these revenges now that they're active since Tice went in with the Malagos. I
forgot about that too.
Those are real cards now.
That is 6 AoE damage he's got.
So this play by Tice pushing in maybe a little bit too early has really activated JasonZhou's hand and given him a lot of opportunities to crawl back in this game.
I mean, was it too early or was this forced? I mean, he had no minion pressure for most of the game.
Yeah. He knew the Arcane Giants were coming.
Leaving the Malagos. This is a good point, actually. Leaving the Malagos up means that JasonZhou is effectively just taking 0 damage per turn because he's got tank up. So Tice is forced onto the board in this state, and that means JasonZhou can then respond. Yeah. If he responds correctly here by pacing himself with Brawl and with Shield Slam, he can literally fatigue Tice.
Yeah, I really like this play by Jason. Really showing the patience, understanding Tice's deck, knowing that he can buy extra time here, which is going to buy him towards those extra removal spells, which in turn is going to allow him to win in fatigue.
He needed JasonZhou to invest into the Malagos.
And Jason did not. He had the understanding of the matchup in the deck, and his
Tice concludes that Brawl means he loses regardless.
Yeah.
So he pushes in now. JasonZhou's going to answer with Brawl, and with a second Shield Slam picked up, say goodbye to the last minion. JasonZhou going to put himself on the board.
Really solid Warrior play. This is a difficult matchup to win as the Warrior player.
It really is.
You know, things lined up pretty well for him over the course of the match, but he still piloted it very, very well and was able to get the win here at the end of the day.
Tinkmaster, I think, is the only spot to look at and
go,
wonder why.
Yeah, but I think the Tinkmaster was a little questionable.
Either way, wow. Just the thing about it is once he got to the right situation, the execution was perfect. That's just what you're looking for from a strong player.
He looks a lot more comfortable now.
Got the win on his golden class. That's the spot for JasonZhou. Could not have had a much better pan out with the Warrior versus Druid matchup. Tice, of course, suffering from quite an unfortunate incident there. 4 major threats in the Warrior matchup at the very bottom.
Sometimes it happens, and he tried to adjust to it, but played a little bit of a gamble there at the end with the Malagos, and Jason, in turn, adjusted to it as well.
Yeah, 2-1 now for Tice. We'll find out if JasonZhou can tie things up right after this.
The Hearthstone World Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Have you started thinking about playing on the big BlizzCon stage yet?
I did think about it, but I need to be like, come out through the group stage first.
Have you thought about the money at all?
Yeah, it's a lot of money, right? I maybe spend some money to travel a bit and rest, and maybe to do some investment.
Investing into Hearthstone packs, perhaps?
Actually, I always do that.
And Control Warrior is always expensive, right?
Yeah, it's always expensive.
Who's been the coolest person that you've met in all of your travels?
My fans, my stream
Oh, your fans. You have to pick one person, though. Does he have blue hair?
Oh, okay, you are the coolest person. We can make a deal. If I win the champion title, I can make the blue hair. Yeah.
Deal?
Just like you. Just like you.
Just like me, with Mohawk too?
Yeah,
okay.
just like you.
Deal?
Deal.
I think blue hair would be great.
Yeah, it matches the jersey.
Yeah.
It fits right in.
It'd be perfect. I could totally see Jason with some blue hair. I'm digging it. Take it one step further. Go Frodan hair.
Purple
Dr.
hair?
Hippie hair.
Dr. Orange hair. I don't know. I think Jason's more of a blue hair guy than an orange hair guy.
Okay. What color hair would Thijs have to be? If you had to pick. Can't be what it is now. Can't be like a normal hair color.
I mean, Thijs is pretty cap of pride in his stream sometimes, so I'd go with rainbow. I'd dig it.
I was thinking fuchsia, personally.
Fuchsia.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's a Druid mirror now, and it's not quite a mirror match. These are some different builds, albeit not gigantic differences. There are some really important ones to point out. First one is JasonZhou is running with 1 copy of Mire Keeper, 1 copy of Mulch, 1 copy of Azure Drake, a Harrison Jones, and a Ragnaros, and the Yogg.
I have to lean a little bit towards JasonZhou. Just the Mulch is insane in this matchup. Just being able to remove big, annoying minions is something that Druid can often struggle with, and an early Arcane Giant can sometimes just be the end of the game. Whereas if you have that Mulch, it's so powerful just to be able to scoop that up out of the way and give you an edge.
Uh-oh. Well, Jason's going with it. Wild Growth into Fandral, and Thijs right away sits up. He has a way to answer this, but this is a force from Jason, and that's not what Thijs wanted to see. This is a stage where you don't want to be forced in anything. You want to be developing your own game plan.
Well, at least he does have a way to answer it. Imagine if he doesn't, and Jason's able to get the Nourish off, then that's always, it always feels horrible when games are decided by that. So at least he has some counterplay to it. He has the ability to remove the Fandral before it runs away with the game, but he is the player reacting, like you said, and that's not typically great in a Druid mirror.
Curious the best way to do this. He's going to go with Feral Rage.
I like using the Moonfire rather than the coin. I think the coin has a lot of value in your hand with the...
What about Living Roots over?
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
Over the Moonfire. The Moonfire, I guess, has more value with Malagos coming out earlier. If you get an early Malagos off and they don't have Mulch, they're dead.
This is one of the matchups where Malagos is oftentimes a 4-12, more so than it is the combo card.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. That's an interesting line of play there, just to try and have that ability to rush a Malagos out.
Wonder if it has more value with Auctioneer as well.
That's true too, yeah. Auctioneer, definitely. Not typically in the Druid deck, but Thijs has that in there, and it's something to think about. Thijs also has the Sylvanas in his deck, which could be huge in this matchup. Sylvanas is
very much
really hard for Druid to deal with. It's got to be one of Druid's least favorite minions.
It's strong against Yogg-Saron. It's strong against Ragnaros. Strong against Ancient of War. Those are 3 of the cards that can very much be game winners in this matchup.
Picks up the Malagos pretty early on. So if he does see the Mulch get launched ever, he'll know that Malagos would be pretty safe just to drop, because 4-12 is very tough for Druid to deal with.
Yeah, it usually takes having board presence and then having spells in hand. It's pretty tough to do both of those things and want to put 12 of it into a minion.
Yeah. So Thijs could honestly even just ramp up to the Malagos and then start rushing it out big time.
I'm curious if he ever feels like he's that far behind. I mean, in this spot, the card draw is very close to slated.
Well, that is a good swipe presented for Thijs here.
It's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
My question is,
Mire Keeper minion.
Do you ever point it at face and hero power the Mire Keeper, or do you ever point it at just point at the Mire Keeper and deal less total damage? Like, are you willing to trade damage with your opponent at this point?
Well, having board control, trading damage is very, very good, right? Because you have your opponent's not threatening to push any damage from the board, like, really ever, as long as you're the one that's in control of the board. So, but how long is Thijs going to be the one that's controlling the board with a hand that's just all spells?
That's a good question. It's something little like that, too, that can just change everything. How often do you find perfect damage at the end of the game? Quite a bit, honestly. It's hard to overkill your opponent.
Wow, Ty's going to forgo this swipe here just to have this opportunity to expose a weak turn by Jason. And instead of pushing damage on that weak turn, he's developing his own hand for a better long-term game plan.
So really giving you an idea into where Theis is viewing this matchup. It's not about chip damage, it's about the overall big picture. Well, it's not the Astral community, I can tell you that.
He's got a... If Theis finds an Emperor Thaurissan, this hand is going to get cooking really quick.
That's about as accurate a description as I can imagine. It's looking good.
But meanwhile, because of this development play of his hand, he's forgone a lot of board development and given Jason the ability to kind of run rampant on this board and get in a lot of damage.
Jason's hand's not looking too bad either.
Yeah, Jason cycled the Wrath that turn instead of going for the tempo with the damage on it so that he could also build his own hand.
Here's the other thing. They know the lists. There's no mulch in Theis's list.
Yeah.
Jason's got Malagos in hand.
He can just drop it turn 9 if he has board control.
And that's a big deal. I mean, the fact that Theis chose to go for hand instead of board means that Jason can play this way.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. Without having those reactionary tools, taking a reactionary stance seems questionable.
Theis looks like he's going for the Malagos himself.
He's going to be the first one with a Malagos on the field and with 2 swipes in hand.
And if he gets Malagos out and it's safe, Jason's not playing Malagos.
Yeah. He's going to stray away from it. Too afraid of the potential mulch coming out of Jason. Yeah. Oh, he's going for it.
I think he's going for it, and that's the Innervate definitely says so.
I really like this play because this is one of the only ways Theis can be on equal footing with Jason if there is a turn 9 Malagos. I think this kind of recovers.
It's not coining the living roots. So Malagos can get swept up this turn, but it's at a heavy cost.
Okay.
Jason's turn is looking mighty awkward. I think he's going to dig for mulch. Naturalize.
Yeah. Dig for any sort of single target removal. That's Savagery could be used for 4 damage here.
That's actually pretty good.
Rage. So you can use
for 5 with the hero power.
I mean, you can go swipe Savagery or swipe Feral Rage Savagery, clean up this Malagos.
You could Feral Rage, hero power, attack it Savagery, and use the Mire Keeper as well.
Okay.
But it looks like he wants the Mire Keeper on board, so he will use the swipe. And so Jason very much valuing the board presence and the chip damage from it, the opposite of what Theis did this game.
Yeah, Theis has been more valuing the hand development. So it's really interesting to see how long the board development will pay off, if Jason's going to be able to get enough damage in, or is Theis going to be able to stabilize, and then his investment into hand early on going to be able to pay off.
This is about as contrasting of styles as it gets.
Yeah.
They literally did the opposite thing.
It's pretty interesting.
What do you think is better?
I'm more of a fan of just board control, board control, board control all the time. Druid is very hard to come back from fighting from behind, aside from things like Yogg-Saron, which isn't even in Theis's deck. So I would oftentimes just kind of explode onto the board in the Druid mirror.
He's going to go wide on board. Says Fangel, Mire Keeper, Living Roots. When Theis does this, I think he feels like he's really behind. He did just force a swipe, so it's an opportunity for him. But if this was going to be his game plan, frankly, I'm in agreement with you. I think that overall board control would have been stronger. When you have board control, you can find opportunities to use Nourish, instead of just taking the one you have and then fighting from behind.
Yeah, and we see Jason now deploying his Malagos for removal. Theis's Malagos already out of the way, and it's going to be tough to clean this up very efficiently. Theis might end up being behind on resources after this all pans out.
Well, it would take double swipe.
And the hero power, yeah, or the Mark of Nature, one or the other. So he does get the full board clear, but at the expense of his entire board, essentially.
Right, and with Caster Vision, this is a disaster. Jason has got everything. I loved the reaction from Firebat here. He just looked up and looked at Jason's hand. It was like, oh, yeah, he does have everything. Like, you weren't even looking at that. You're just looking at the hand going, where does he go?
It's really tough from Theis's
Here's the other thing, too,
Can you afford to kill the Malagos? You could ignore it.
That's exactly the question I was about to ask. He just saw Jason use a swipe and then followed up with Malagos and spells. If he goes with a play say, Azure Drake and Swipe Face.
Yeah, there could be some alternative lines here that could allow you to push the chip damage, like you said.
This way I don't really like as much, and I'll explain why. If Thijs goes for the face plant, Jason's got to have spells to clean this up.
Well, this way Jason has to have big minions to punish.
Right, but there's a lot more big minions to punish left than there are spells to punish.
That's true. Yeah, I think it might have been an opportunity to take a huge risk there for Thijs. Just play Azure Drake, swipe the face, and push the board to the face. Ignore Malagos and cross your fingers.
Now look at Thijs.
Yeah, the nerves setting in maybe a little bit.
Well, it's got to be. Look what just happened. That's game.
Yeah, oftentimes this is...
Thijs doesn't have a Ragnaros. He doesn't have a Yogg-Saron. There's no coming back from this spot.
Yeah, his Druid deck is very straightforward. Looks built to be pretty much ahead the whole time, right?
He's wondering where this one got away. Thijs was off to a strong start, and I think it was that Nourish turn.
I think the Nourish turn was awkward, yeah. I didn't like that one. I think you had the ability to push so much damage and punish with the swipe and just follow your directional game plan, develop on the board, push chip damage, kill him with Malagos combo. I think Thijs was in the lead in that position and then sort of tried to pull it back, maybe try and find a more consistent win rate route, do something a little differently off the wall, and it sort of slipped away from him.
And the thing about it is in the first two games, he really had that liberty.
Oh, he was
got the Murloc Knight, which opened up the game plan for Zhou. Game number 2, smooth sailing victory, kind of the same way, just had all the resources. Last two games have not been the same. He had a very unfortunate Druid pan out in game 3, and in this one, I think a bit of a misstep. JasonZhou, though, he took the opportunities. He fought for the board as soon as he got a chance.
He got the board control away from Thijs, who originally had it in the beginning, and then as soon as he had board control, he kept it for the entire game and closed it out.
2 games apiece. We'll find out who's taking the lead. Game number 5 coming up right after this.
Where do you think Europe stacks up against the rest of the world in competitive Hearthstone?
I might be a little bit biased towards that, but I think we as Europe have a really strong lineup here. I think what Dr. Hippie performed this year is probably the best out of the 16 players. He performed really well, and yeah, Nyman, Pavel, me. I think we have, compared to the other regions, I think we have a stacked lineup. Europe, I just feel we just somehow analyze everything and we just come to the conclusion over a lot of data maybe, or over everything like this is just the best. We have a lot of competition in Europe, might be a little bit in our luck, in our favor that we have a lot of tournaments just everywhere, so we can compete way more. Yeah, we are really passionate. We play the game a lot and we take the game serious.
Started the set 2-0, but now it's 2-2. How are you feeling after you win the first two and lose the next two? Where's your mind at?
Kind of like that. Just a little, you got to take a step back, take a breath, try and figure out what went wrong and how you can get back in this game. You got to be a little sad that the Warrior's gone as well. With Theis' remaining classes being Druid, which is typically pretty good against Warrior, and being Hunter, which is typically good against Warrior, he could find himself in a bit of a pickle.
Certainly could. And now contrast that with Jason's spot. You lose first two and you win the next two.
I feel great. You're like, I had a little bit of stage fright in the beginning, but now I'm in my groove. This is my game to win.
And suddenly have the tides turned. The basically what we saw in game number one, where Theis was able to steamroll his way to victory. Jason's now on that Zhou side, and there's some minor differences, but overall the game plan's about the same.
Yeah, just develop the board, get a really difficult to remove board, and keep getting in chip damage, keep outvaluing your opponent with crazy buff turns.
And this is not the opening hand Theis is looking for. He needs removal. That's what this early game's about.
And innervate. Innervate's just so huge. If you can innervate out something onto the board and be, you know, an initiator in this matchup, your win rate goes up by a lot.
Instead, Jason's gonna get on the board about the same pace that Theis did.
That's all you need as the Zhou player. You just need a little bit at a time, sticky, hard to remove things, and that's what this Possessed Villager offers. It's very difficult for Theis to be able to remove this. There's not really any way to do it besides like Moonfire hero power.
Yeah, just turn after turn, it deals another point of damage.
And it accumulates quick.
Yes. You'll get to turn 7 if that guy's still there. That's a Leroy Jenkins.
Basically, yeah. It's pretty crazy.
The hand happens to be good versus Imp Gang Boss, I feel.
Ooh, Councilman's even better out there.
It's not very good versus that.
Yeah, there's very limited ways that a Druid can deal with Councilman. We saw previously Theis had to mulch one. I mean, JasonZhou had to mulch one, I apologize. So it's very, very hard to remove this minion, and Jason's debating whether or not he wants to go with it or the Imp Gang Boss. He is going to end up going with the Imp Gang Boss, which I kind of disagree with, knowing that Theis' list doesn't have any mulch in it, and aside from Feral Rage Moonfire, he can't really kill a Councilman, and that would accumulate damage very quickly.
And Feral Rage Moonfire, there's a lot of stuff to use to kill one card. It's definitely a significant threat, but he's also got 2 Direwolf Alphas. He's got a Silverware Golem waiting for when he draws a discard effect. I think the Imp Gang Boss is just a bit weaker here.
Yeah.
Maybe he was trying to force a Feral Rage that this sticks more often.
Sure, I guess. I could see that, but there's so much missed potential damage as the Councilman would have been growing all of this time. And now it's a little bit smaller.
That's certainly the other side of it, is if you try to force a Feral Rage so that Darkshire Councilman sticks more often, just miss a lot of damage.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess if at the end of the day, Theis runs out of resources and cannot remove it ever,
that's even more damage.
Then it's so much damage, because that guy gets huge.
So then that's the debate. Do you force and hope it lives to get more, or do you play it now and take what you can get?
I usually just play it first. Take what you can get against Druid. If you can rush that guy out there, it's so difficult for them to remove, because their toolkit just doesn't deal 5 damage very efficiently.
Yep, and you've got plenty of damage in the build to close with. There's 2 Soulfires, there's the Power Overwhelming, there's 2 Doom Guards.
Yeah, looks like Theis is thinking about maybe setting up to try and kill this Councilman by hero powering it this turn. The biggest fear in Theis' mind right now is the Defender of Argus coming down.
Yep, there's only 1 copy in Jason's build though, so don't think it's something he can really, he doesn't have the liberty to play around anything right now, so Theis is just trying to figure out the most effective way to get this done.
Yeah, and so he is going to go with just killing the 1/1 Imp, making sure to remove all potential Demon synergy, and just taking care of the most power off the board that he can that turn.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot. Yeah, and with Malchezaar, Zimp, Soulfire, and Silverware Golem next turn.
Cycle cards and produce 3 free freeze.
Theis just might be dead.
Yeah, he looks very toast at this point. He's got the ability to Feral Rage to gain a lot of life to try and stall a little bit, but this is typically how this matchup goes. We saw this matchup played out earlier from the other perspective, both players on flip-flop classes, and this is why Zhou's beginning to appear in tournaments, is just because it farms this matchup so efficiently, and you can pretty much guarantee that your opponent's going to have Druid, as it's one of the most represented classes in the meta.
16, 17, 18?
It does
I think
look
I counted
like,
that as 18, so lead with the Malcazar Zimp, buffs up the Councilman. Dark Peddler comes down, buffs up the Councilman. He finds a 1-cost minion here, which he does, buffs up the Councilman. The Silverware Golem won't enter play because the board is full. Is that enough damage still?
I can't see what the Councilman's at.
So Councilman right now is at 7 power.
Okay, then 2 Direwolf Alphas plus another 2, so that's another 6.
12,
so
13, 14, 15, 16, 17,
yeah,
18. Yeah, so it's lethal. And I think he's counting it right now.
Sure.
Maybe he's missing something?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's lethal.
Is it not at 6?
So it was at 5 leading into the turn.
That's true.
So he played 1 minion already, so
that
it's
makes
6.
it 6.
Dark Peddler makes it 7.
Yeah.
He's got 2 more from each Direwolf Alpha. 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 18.
Yeah.
Just counting it up. It's one of your tricks where you're like, don't blow it now. Just go ahead and count it 15 times. There's no reason not to.
Sure, you got the time. Might as well take it. I always, count it on my fingers, count it in my head, count it backwards. Just make sure, count it every way that it adds up.
Just a blowout victory for Jason, who's now in the lead in this series. He's won 3 straight.
Yeah. Pretty sick comeback.
What's going on in Theis' head? Just now look at the body language.
Yeah.
They both look stressed now.
Theis is really feeling the pressure. This Druid deck just can't get a win for Theis. Typically speaking, one of the most powerful decks in the metagame.
Wow, that picture says it all. Match point for Jason. I'll be right back.
The Hearthstone World Championship is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
If you were to give advice to a player, we'll call him Joe Cardslinger. He's got a pretty good collection. He's hit the legend rank before, and he wants to start getting into competitive Hearthstone. What would your advice be to him?
Well, for Joe Cardslinger, if he already has some experience in Hearthstone and already reached Legend, that is the first step. You just have to get a little bit used to the game. You have to play a lot. You have to invest a lot of time in the game. And once you are there, once you are really passionate also about the game, you have to work really hard. You have to criticize yourself a lot. Like, I have played now here twice. I've become 2 times European champion. but I think I've never played a perfect series. I always have things to improve, and I think it's something in my mindset that I feel I always can improve. And yeah, I feel that that keeps me also really strong, that you're never done with yourself. And I think it's always good to analyze your playstyle, analyze a lot. Also, it stays important, keep having fun in the game.
Joe Cardslinger always has fun.
Yeah, Joe Cardslinger can become the next European champion. He has the name to do it, so.
He does.
No one plays perfect.
I guess not, but they
Not
play.
even me.
Really?
The pressure's on in this one. I have to say, Thijs, his first 2 games looked magnificent. He was finding the right opportunities with very little information from the opponent, just seizing the moment.
Yeah.
The last few games, obviously, you know, game number 5 was a blowout. Thijs hit his failure rate with Druid. But I think the other 2 games were winnable.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of bumps on either side here, and that's typically to be expected. It's very, 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 very difficult to play Hearthstone absolutely perfectly. There's just so many things you have to factor in, as well as reads and what have you. So, you know, no fault to the players there. No one's really been playing perfectly all tournament, but the guy that wins the entire thing, maybe he'll be the guy playing perfectly.
It's usually who makes the least mistakes.
Yeah.
Hearthstone's not a game you play perfectly. The other thing about it, too, is these guys are making reads at these high levels.
Sure.
They're trying to make reads with little information.
Yeah.
How often do they make misreads?
A lot. It's well, also you try and confuse the information that you're giving off to your opponent to try and make it so they make misreads. That's another aspect of the game as well, holding back specific tools. We saw earlier on, you know, Jason held back that brawl in the final moments against Thijs in the Druid game, and then Thijs was like, well, I have to all in. He doesn't have brawl. If he has brawl, I lose anyway, and has to go all in, and then able to punish him for that. So there's been a lot of interesting moments, reads, and what have you.
Rogue versus Druid. Jason on the Rogue, Thijs on the Druid. This is a matchup that oftentimes is in favor of the Rogue. The most important card in the matchup for Thijs is Wild Growth. He's coining into Wild Growth here on turn 1 with an Auctioneer, Raven Idol, Wild Growth in hand. What is the major game plan here, and where does Druid actually find its wins when it takes this game?
Thijs is just trying to accelerate mana as fast as possible so that he can get that Gadgets and Auctioneer out there and react to his opponent's minions with it. He's trying to cycle this Raven Idol to some sort of useful removal tool that can help him. Maybe you just keep ramping up to this Gadgetson. I don't know. But Healing Touch and Naturalize are both win condition defining cards as well. So all 3 of these cards have an approach that you could take and justify for picking them. Healing Touch, you can out-heal all of the Rogue's damage. Wild Growth, you can try and ramp to your Gadgets and get ahead, cycle as many cards as possible. And Naturalize, you can go for the game plan of trying to remove every single one of the Rogue's minions because they have a limited amount of minions.
It's much more difficult versus Jason. He's rolling with Leroy Jenkins as his major final push. So if he's able to push through any points of damage and then has Leroy and Cold Bloods, Naturalize suddenly looking a lot worse, and it will actually kind of fan the flames, so to speak, if he's naturalizing any other threat. This isn't the Questing Adventurer one. There is the all-in potential with Edwin Van Cleef, but I think Thijs is comfortable enough playing around that situation. He's got a ton of ramp going on.
Yeah. He's going to be able to get a lot of cycle off this Gadgetson potentially.
And Jason's got one of the most important cards in Tomb Pillager. The rest of the hand is a lot of fairly weak utility right now, though.
Yeah, if he doesn't hit an Azure Drake or Gadgetson Auctioneer fairly soon, he could really just start running out of gas.
Thijs with a freshly drawn swipe. I think he's looking to ramp and just get the double draw from Wild Growth with the Auctioneer. Turn it into a 3-card draw effect rather than a 2.
You don't really have enough time, right?
I think you do. I think that you swipe this Tomb Pillager and then evaluate. You're not playing Auctioneer this turn.
Oh, definitely not this turn. It's just too weak on the board.
So turn 8 is going to be the critical point for Thijs, where he has to figure out where his game plan's going. If Jason has a weak turn, I think it's reasonable to wait.
Okay. He is waiting on this Wild Growth. He's going to wait for the double cycle. I think it's a bit conservative. Against Rogue, they could really just keep the gas flowing.
There's that Azure Drake.
Yeah.
It's a big draw.
He's got another opportunity, you know, based on the information of this draw. Does he decide to kind of be patient?
It's not waiting when he draws the Innervate, that's for sure.
Now it's time to develop a Gadgetson Auctioneer, remove the Azure Drake. Look at, he's basically Miracle Rogue.
Take that, Rogue.
Wow.
These are sick draws.
can cycle both of these while removing the Azure Drake if he wants to.
I wonder if he's going for minions here. Yep, he needs the board presence.
Just going wide on the
Well,
board.
does that slow it down now? Now do you just wild growth? Take the card draw now.
Yeah, you can turn it into 1 card later and 2 spells, which discounts your Arcane Giants more, which is important. Or you can just turn it into 1 card now, which means it's not a dead card in your hand for 2 turns. And you also have an extra mana the following turn to play Malygos plus the Living Roots. So I really like the Wild Growth this turn, just so your opponent plays something. You just Malygos Living Roots their guy.
I think it's great.
Rogue doesn't have Assassinate in it in mainstream Rogue. They have to then, you know, sap Malygos, and then you play it again.
There's also the other opportunity here, which is Living Roots for more board presence.
Okay.
Hope Auctioneer just lives.
I guess that could happen.
You know, say that the Auctioneer pulls damage here, it makes it that much harder to kill the Malygos.
Sure, yeah. The Eviscerate gone.
There's no Fan of Knives in hand either. These 1/1s are going to pile up some damage.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jason's kind of got a little bit of an exhausted hand. Just has to Tomb Pillager Eviscerate, and Theis has 9 mana to take action on this board. I'd love to see Malygos Moonfire
Oh
come
yeah,
out.
he knows too. When he sees the Eviscerate, the 2 Pillagers dying, if Jason's going to kill this, it's going to take a charge minion. He's not using Leroy Jenkins to kill the Malygos here unless he feels there's no other way he can win. If Theis sees that Leroy, Theis feels like he can win. Both Tomb Pillagers are down.
Jason really needs Gadget Sand.
And Azure Drake's down.
Oh my! That's actually absolutely nuts. Now he's actually developing a minion, so sapping the Malygos feels a lot better because you can't just play Malygos into a Gadgetson Auctioneer.
No, you cannot.
And Jason's drawing like almost his entire deck in this sequence. Most likely is going to hit a Conceal, be able to hide this Gadgetson, get guaranteed damage from it.
That is a sick draw.
Yeah, I'd love to see him start cycling the Backstab, then maybe even start cycling the Cold Blood, digging to try and find those Conceals. About halfway through his deck now.
He's going to slow it down
He's
right
gonna
there.
Slow it down, yeah. He wants to save the damage. Sure.
Rightfully so. He knows that Theis has the Malygos. He's got to either kill that or he's got to kill Theis.
So,
I mean, the win conditions are on the board right now for both players. It's time for them both to try to end the game.
Theis has the ability here to gain a lot of life with the Feral Rage, which is really important, and also gain a lot of cards with the Nourish, so he can start digging for answers while, oh.
I think I like the Wrath a bit more.
I like the 0 mana Arcane Giant.
He's going to go for Feral Rage.
Yeah, able to just heal for 4 with it while also removing it.
Do you like the Feral Rage there?
Yeah.
Wrath picks up a card in this situation.
With the Arcane Giant already in hand, an extra card is valued at a lot less, I think, than...
Okay.
If you had no Arcane Giants, I'd say, yeah, go for the Wrath, hit the Arcane Giant, right?
Gotcha.
But there's nothing really you can top deck off the Wrath that super helps this situation.
Another Arcane Giant.
Well, I guess, yeah. But the odds of getting it is super diminished because you already have the 1. Okay. A lot of damage picked up there. You know, 12, 18, 21 potential damage for Jason out of the hand directly.
But he's got to answer the board first.
Does he?
I don't know.
If he daggers Deadly Poison, that's 6 damage over 2 turns. So that would be
24 to Theis, 3 from the...
Yeah, that's 27. So he's 3 damage away from trying to get the job done. 1 Eviscerate's already been used, so that's the max damage his deck has.
That being said, Theis on board is 8 damage away from lethal.
Yeah, but 8's huge.
You know there's a Malygos in hand.
But you know a Moonfire's been used. You know both Living Roots have been used.
True.
So there's only 6 potential from the Malygos.
It's true.
Yeah, so the Malygos can't end up being a real threat.
He's going for the Cold Bloods right now.
Sure, trying to make the Giant have to trade potentially.
But he's also eviscerating the Fandral.
Yeah. Getting in the Cold Blood allows for more mana efficiency, so we can include a sap with the Leroy later turns.
This is a tense turn.
Well, Theis can exhaust Jason in this sort of situation, knowing that the remaining damage is Leroy, Cold Blood, and the just Deadly Poison. So, you know.
He's got Leroy, he's got...
Yeah,
just the one Deadly Poison in the build.
Yeah.
So 1 Deadly Poison. He's got 1 Eviscerate left. Is that right?
No, both Eviscerates have been used now. So I would really like to see Theis...
the Auctioneer.
Yeah, just Wrath the 7/3, take the value trade with the Giant taunt up the tree and just slowly grind out board control.
Spots it. I'll tell you what, if there's one spot that Thijs is really strong at, it's identifying that situation.
Swashbuckler could add more damage.
Could also get a mulch.
Oh, or could get something that allows you to win the value game. Picks up Cenarius.
Jason, I don't think Jason's got the time to get this done.
No, it's so much pressure coming in at him. You can't really sap an Arcane Giant either because, one, it'll heal it for 4, and 2, it'll cost 0 mana to replay, so it'll just be coming right back. And
if you sap the 5/10, you're in the exact same spot. That sap has to be timed to unlock damage.
It might be some sort of sap the 5/10, Leroy the Arcane Giant kind of play.
Oh, that's nice. I gotta win that way.
Hey, you could. You have Cenarius to try and outgrind your opponent, depending on what Thijs' hand is. We see he's got Nourish, one of the most high-value cards in the matchup, but...
You know he's got the 4/12.
Yeah, the 4/12 is going to be a problem.
It's a bit, yeah.
But there's no way you're winning by just trying to stick damage through. It's not in your deck.
How does he get through this Ancient War after this?
This is the second sap, right? So it comes back. He's got Conceals to try and stick damage.
He's going to have to draw Swashbuckler and find a way to kill the Ancient of War. That's about the only efficient way he has left to kill it.
It's got to be like Swashbuckler into Mulch.
Naturalize.
Or Naturalize, yeah.
Keeper of the Grove.
Okay, there's some options.
I mean, that's a long shot, though.
Yeah, it's
Thijs, he like winced at this turn. Like, he could feel that the victory's right here.
What to do?
What's he digging for here? It's not that.
Most likely we'll see the Ancient of War come down and maybe take a trade with the sapling and then the giant punches to the face.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Jason can remove the 5/10 this turn. Doing so puts him basically dead.
Yeah, that's the problem with that play.
Yeah, the Cenarius buff play.
I think that's it. I think Thijs just turned the corner that one turn.
Well, he's got Leroy plus his face plus SI Agent plus Coldblood the Swashbuckler, kill the giant, and he'll be alive. Leroy fan, looking for answers. Looks like he's gonna have to take 5. He's still in it, ish.
Yeah, not in it. He knows. The Malagos is already there. It's match point for both. Thijs winning a critical game number 6 to keep himself alive in this upper bracket. Players who lose today are not eliminated from the tournament. They are just dropping down to the lower portion of it. They will face an elimination match later on, but that game for Thijs was super important. The turn he identified a trade.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, super good. He's just calculating all of the damage left in the Rogue deck and identified that Rogue doesn't have enough damage. Let's just grind him out of the game.
Get there any way you can. Match point for both players. Game number 7 is coming up right after this. First match of the day, first game 7, first match for the players. A lot of firsts in this one.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting as well because it's kind of the first time we've really casted this matchup too. And this matchup is very interesting. JasonZhou with the traditional burst-heavy Miracle Rogue, so not really the questing adventurer build, which has got to give it a slight edge against Hunter, just having more damage readily available. And Thijs with the Secret Hunter build that includes double snipe. So even though it's got the mid-range end to it, the double snipes, that sort of secret package is just so effective against Rogue that I think that might give him the edge in the matchup.
I think so as well. Snipe is a heavy-hitting card versus Rogue in particular. It's killing SI7 agents, important to stick that to the board. It's taking out Tomb Pillagers, one of the most critical cards.
Holy smokes.
Can hit Leroy Jenkins. Opening hand is great for Thijs, but Swashbuckler is an interesting tech card that can actually help Jason a lot in this matchup. Early on, of course, it's just a great drop, but in the later stages of the game, he could check for Snipe with Swashbuckler.
Not this one, though. This one's going out there. It's going to be able to eat a freezing trap, though, potentially later on.
That Cloaked Huntress is a bit of foreshadowing for Jason at this moment. He doesn't know it, but the hand from Thijs is stacked.
Yeah, Thijs is going to be able to, on turn 2, use the coin plus his hand to develop 9 mana worth of things onto the board.
Now, I'm curious if he's going for the freezing trap.
Okay, yeah, you don't really want a freezing trap a Swashbuckler, right? It's kind of a waste.
Yeah, I think you'd rather isolate it and then do it, but either way, this is really good.
No, he's going to play the freezing. It looks like he queued it up. But I like your point. Potentially just holding back the freezing could be better here.
I think it's because he's got 2 freezings.
Sure. I still, even though freezing's so powerful against Rogue if it hits a good minion, they don't have that many weak minions. They have just the 2 Swashbucklers, right, that can eat it. Other than that, it's hitting something important every time. So I don't like this freezing trap.
Find out if it's a benefit. Cloaked Huntress is going to eat a snipe here, and you saw Jason's.
He knows there's 2 snipes.
Kind of nod, yeah, and he held off right there. That's the reason I don't like the freezing trap, actually, is because now he's Swashbuckler.
Yeah. See? He's able to defuse the freezing and defuse the snipe all in the same turn with 1 card.
Yeah. I wonder if that was a bit too quick. Well, it's a race.
Yeah, Thijs already pretty low on fuel, but he is getting through a lot of decent chip damage, has a good on-curve play for the following turn.
Without that preparation, Jason, I think, would have been in a bad spot. Picking up that preparation lets him develop 4 points of pressure here, and now prep this Eviscerate. And if he doesn't prep this Eviscerate,
well, he's afraid of the cat trick is what it is.
Oh, you're right. I literally forget about this card every time.
Yeah.
I lose this card so often.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised that I just literally forget about it as I'm casting the game with Cat Trick being played on turn 2 free from a Cloaked Huntress.
Yeah, giving Hunter 4 free damage is very scary.
Yeah.
It could either be Snakes or Cat Trick, the remaining traps. And I guess the other one could be freezing at this point. The snipe has been tested for. So.
Well, when Thijs takes this attack, I think you're pretty confident it's freezing.
So you know one of them's freezing, and the other one could be either Cat Trick or Snake Trap at this point.
I think that's the point. You just apply the most pressure you can then. Thijs having to weigh whether or not the buff from Houndmaster is better on or playing better to his curve, where next turn he gets to Cloaked Huntress and weave in a Hero Power. I think with his card economy right now, Hero Powers are extremely valuable.
Yeah, definitely. Hero Power, essentially, if you get enough damage through, it just adds up to being a card. So if you Hunter them in the face enough, it eventually turns into a card. How much damage is a card worth? That whole Hunter SM Orc math equation.
I picture like the Hangover, where it's got like little formulas going back and forth.
I mean, that's a good Hunter player.
But each one is just 2 equals 2.
2 equals 2.
2 equals X minus 2.
Orc damage.
Eviscerate's going to be the lead. That'll activate Cat Trick, looking to follow up potentially with SI7 agent. Honestly, the Cat Trick is really messing up the math here.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out if it's Cat Trick or Snakes and which one he wants to kind of hedge his bets over. There's 1 Snakes in the build, 2 Cat Tricks in the build.
I think you follow up as Cat Trick right now. He already forewent the preparation Eviscerate last turn.
Sure.
Do you see a reason to deviate?
No.
Especially now when you see that.
Well, he goes face with the Barn, so he still has no idea Cat Trick or Snakes. And here goes the Eviscerate. It's going to be sad news for Jason, as it is going to be that Cat Trick that gets deployed.
I wonder if he's supposed to SI there instead? Like SI use the dagger and then it allows him to prep the Eviscerate?
Well, that's if you want to play around Cat Trick and play into Snakes, yeah.
Well, he gets to clear 2 minions that way. versus the 1, but it's a 3-4 instead of a 3-3. That's kind of curious. That's an interesting spot. Either way, Thijs picks up Savannah High Main, adds more pressure to the board, and the steady shots abound. Jason is very far off of being able to deliver a finishing blow.
Oh, Gadgets and double prep, though.
Well, prep into prep.
I mean, he's really hoping to, you know, Gadgets and prep into a spell.
I think you gotta tame the board right now.
I think you got to tame it and develop it. You're at 16 life against a hunter. I don't think you got time to mess around. I like this. I think you got to risk it.
I don't disagree with you. I just would have thought about it a little bit longer because I don't know what's going on. But prep into prep is not a comfortable feeling.
Oh, he gets the fan, though, which isn't
it's
not the worst.
Pretty weak.
It disables backstab, unfortunately.
Imagine if he had it in the other order. Prep into fan and the prep into fan.
That would have been disgusting.
Different game.
Yeah.
Down to 12. Thijs has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage available this turn. Now here's the thing. If he doesn't go for 10 damage this turn, that's a bad idea. Savannah High Main's very liable to get sapped. There's an Auctioneer on the board. Thijs needs to set up a 2-turn lethal here, but he can't actually do that because he doesn't have a beast. So not having a beast is really critical at this point. So where does he go for the win?
If you look at his deck list, you know, the remaining cards, there's a few traps, there's quick shots, beasts, eagle horn bows, another kill command. Almost every card, you know, allows for that 2-turn lethal setup. So I think it's above 50% that you have a 2-turn lethal setup. You even got a tracking in there. I think the hero power is just clearly the best play here.
Are you kill commanding this turn ever?
You remove 2 Kindly Grandmothers as outs for lethal. You also remove
what do you add
Animal
as
Companion.
outs?
You can't play with the kill command.
Because here's the thing. This 3-2 is not going to be on board. He's going to be at 7 mana.
If you play the kill command this turn, you remove 2 outs, but you add 2 Argent Horse, or you add 1 Argent Horse Rider, so you add 1 out there. You add 2 Eagle Horn Bows. You add the second kill command, so you should kill command every time.
Yep. Thijs going for it, and this is what needed to happen. Jason now at the mercy of Thijs's deck. He's not close to a finishing blow just yet. He's going to need multiple turns to get this done. But with Auctioneer on the table, with Thijs exhausted on resources, this is the turn that's critical for Jason. He has to be the biggest setup he possibly can. It's just 2 SI7 agents and push for damage. Thijs needs a draw right now.
Yeah, Thijs has maybe 2 turns to get the job done. It's, there's no damage currently in the hand from Jason, but besides the Leroy, but that could very quickly change with a few key draws, and Thijs doesn't find it, so he's got this turn, hero power, and then he just hopes Jason isn't able to piece it together.
10, 11, 12, 13, there's 14, there's 20 damage available
with the daggers
from Jason, and with dagger it's 21.
Oh, so he did set up the lethal. And the cold blood as well.
Jason is going to take a 7-game set. Thijs fails to draw 2 points of damage, and that's going to do it. Wow, what a series between these two. This is exactly the way so many sets have gone too, down to the wire with just a couple points of damage separating players.
Yeah, I really like Thijs's play though. I think that is the correct position to go all in there. I think that he put himself in favorable odds to win the series with that line of play in that last game. But JasonZhou's Rogue able to pull through.
Yep, down to the lower bracket for Thijs. Not out of it just yet, but will face an elimination match versus Handsome Guy, who lost his set yesterday 4-0 to Cydonia. So that one coming up later in the week. Plenty more matches left to go today, but Dan is standing by with your winner. Let's hear some words from him.
Jason, that was a crazy series going down to the last turn. It could have gone either way if he was able to draw a little bit of damage. What's going through your mind? What's the first thoughts after that series?
Feels pretty good. Thijs is a great player, so I feel a lot of pressure when I play against him. I know I can't make any mistake. If I made any mistake, I would lose the game. So, yeah, maybe I get better RNG today.